Hey everyone. This, folks, is the calm before the storm. We all know a hellish storm is coming. There's a unique celestial alignment that even the tribe elders can't recall. It has the ingredients of a disaster of biblical proportions, because if you mix scams and liability shifts and faster payments all together, the result is going to be earth-shattering. The biggest seismic shift is happening for incoming transactions. In the UK, new regulations from PSR impose a 50% scam liability on the beneficiary bank. That's coming in 2024. And then we've got an imminent liability shift on Zelle transactions. You all know that Zelle is the P2P real-time transfer payment network in the US between the banks, where the beneficiary bank will be liable for 100% of the losses. These liability shifts are unprecedented in the banking sector. So what can we do to prepare? Here are some of the fundamentals. The first thing is to run a mule detection program. The best programs use behavioral biometrics or analytics and device analytics to spot mule patterns at a low FP rate. Mules are the oxygen of financial crime. So it's the first area to focus on when you think about how do we prepare for liability shift on incoming transactions. Now, today we'll have a couple of FraudCON episodes focused on funneling illegal money. Our opening talk is from the good folks in Coinbase, who will tell us about investigating the dark chain. And then Luke Raven, one of the best voices of financial crime fighting in Australia, will talk about a lesson in money laundering. There's one common resource used across all types of financial crimes, and those are the mules, which is number one advice: run a mule detection program. The next thing is to boost your account opening fraud detection capabilities, because about 90% of mule activities in the US and about 50% in the UK are from newly opened accounts that passed all of the KYC controls and were, purposely opened for that purpose, for that specific goal. Behavioral analytics is, again, the strongest signal, coupled with enriching data, looking at email, phone resources, and other parameters. We'll have Doug Mialau from Best Ed, who's an expert on online account opening fraud, sharing the tricks of the trade in terms of detecting account opening. Next is leverage data sharing capabilities with the originating bank. So if you're the receiving end of a transaction, and if you have a way to share information in real time with the originating bank, take that under consideration. The UK is developing a real-time capability around that. And in the US, Early Warning, who is a network that is operating Zelle, a massive network, can also help in that sense. So if real-time data sharing is possible, is available, it's essentially a no-brainer. What happens if it's not available? Then the same old wisdom of leveraging intelligence sharing should apply here. Tap broader resources, talk to your colleagues in other banks, in social networks, in law enforcement, and we'll listen to the FraudCON talk on from Erin West, who is Deputy District Attorney in Santa Clara from California. She will share intelligence on one of the worst type of scams, known as pig butchering. This is, in my mind, a must. It actually talks specifically about one of the most problematic types of scams. Next is to think about your operational posture when you fight incoming transaction fraud. Money comes into the account, you can monitor that event and maybe act upon that. But maybe another approach would be to monitor that account and see how money is moved out. So allowing suspicious transfer in, and then monitoring the account for any money transfer out will basically buy valuable time for your operations team, the investigations team that will look at those alerts. This will also reduce your caseload. One team in the fraud department that has always taken that approach is the one fighting check fraud. So when you see people depositing checks and they happen to be fraudulent, or essentially a mule account for those fraud events, money is coming into their account, but the question is how quickly and how does it actually leave their account. Check fraud used to be a big problem. Then it kind of dwindled over the years, replaced by online banking account takeover fraud. But hey, it's made a huge comeback. And David Maimon, a professor of criminal justice and criminology at Georgia State University, will share some war stories around that. Another thing around operations, we do have to realize that even if we do everything that we discussed so far, the very fact that we will flip on a mule detection program or, let's say, an incoming transaction analysis will create a lot of alerts. We should prepare for a massive increase in fraud operations. Think about detecting incoming transactions. There's not much context. So your false positive ratio may be north of 100 to 1, 100 good for every one actual mule activity or incoming fraudulent money. And you'll need to actually investigate those alerts and try to find out which of these 100 you actually need to block and suspend. You need to resolve each of these suspect alerts. This actually calls for a very big investigation team, something that in account takeover fraud you typically don't need, because customers can essentially solve their own alerts. You ask them, hey, did you do this money transfer? Did you move this money? And they will say yes or no, and based on that you can make decisions. With scams, you cannot do that. And certainly when it's incoming, you cannot really expect the mule account to say, hey, yeah, it's me, I'm a mule. So you do need to have that investigation. Talking to potential scam victims is a massive operation in itself. And if you need to interview a lot of good people, let's say 100 good people for every one possible scam victim, which might be guided even to mislead you. Or if we talk about incoming transactions, that's when you're talking to a possible mule. It might look like a Sisyphean effort, but it does pay off. When you do get through to actual scam victims, you'll feel their pain. And Kathleen Swack, lead fraud chain in the CISO team of ABN AMRO, will talk about what scam victims tell us. Later on, we'll also have Ayelet Bigger from Scam Rangers and Erin England from BioCatch talking about the dark art of scams and like the latest trend in those types of scams. Last but not least, think about those criminals, but also think about many of the good users that just received some funds into their account. In many cases, especially the criminals, but also the good people, will want to move the money out fast. There are some situations like that. This means that the investigation needs to be very, very quick. This might suggest that if you think about your operations team, which again should be much bigger than your current size of operations, maybe help them with ways to automate or shorten the investigation or collect a lot of context by spotting which activities are actually clearly legit. You don't want to spend time on those. So overall, a lot of things to think about for the coming celestial alignment of scams, liability shift, especially on incoming transactions and faster payments. And I haven't even mentioned FedNow, which is the new faster payment rail coming to the US. That will be a slower deployment, but it's coming as well. So it will be interesting, and hopefully a lot of the war stories that you will hear today at FraudCON Virtual can help you think about those sort of elements. And that's it, folks. So we've prepared a very interesting mix of 7 war stories and personal perspectives. We do hope you enjoy the program, find it useful. And because these were pre-recorded, don't forget to connect to the speakers using LinkedIn. They're happy to connect, happy to continue the conversation, ask them questions, and engage. So with this, let's just start FraudCON Virtual 2023 and enjoy, guys.